Hi, I'm Brian Raftery. I'm a correspondent for Wired magazine and the author of Don't Stop Believin', How Karaoke Conquered the World and Changed My Life. And this is Don Henley. Or rather, it's a charcoal sketch of Don Henley that I obtained in Times Square. And it actually looks more like Ewan McGregor wearing a bolo tie. Anyway, during the last 2 years when I've been working on Don't Stop Believin', people would often ask me, why write a book about karaoke? And the fact is, I did it for people like Don. You see, even though karaoke is a worldwide phenomenon, one that's spawned everything from American Idol to Guitar Hero, there are still a lot of people in the world who haven't discovered the ridiculous, noisy kicks of karaoke. And Don Henley's one of them. Now, Don Henley's never explicitly said that he hates karaoke. However, as a songwriter, he's refused to allow such hits as Desperado or Hotel California to be licensed for use in American karaoke bars. Now, you may have performed some of these songs at an American karaoke bar, but the fact is, you may have been using an illegally obtained overseas disc. Which means if you've sung Life in the Fast Lane at 2 a.m. to a bunch of tipsy paralegals, you were probably helping to support a karaoke-funded terrorism group. Maybe. Now, Don Henley can do whatever he wants with his songs. I don't want to interfere with his life, which seems very nice and full of bolo ties and long walks and talks about the end of the innocence. But Don, if you're watching, as improbable as that seems, I'd invite you to come out to karaoke one night with me and my friends. You'll understand why it's become a multi-million-dollar phenomenon around the world. And who knows, maybe you'll get up and want to sing. Maybe a song by Don Henley. What do you say? The first karaoke machine was invented in Japan in 1971 by a guy named Daisuke Inoue. And he was a jazz drummer. He'd been playing for a couple years in various bands. He basically took a couple of existing inventions, took a speaker, he took an 8-track machine, just sort of merged it all together and came up with something called the Juke 8. So he came up with the idea of asking very attractive hostesses to walk into the bars, start using the machines, and with the hopes that there would be some possibly drunken businessman who would want to sing, try to impress this woman. And it worked. Karaoke was a very hard sell in America at first. If you think about American culture and you think about what it was like in the late 70s, early 80s, the idea of getting up and singing in front of people kind of had a slightly cheesy lounge singer connotation. I've always felt that a lot of people, when they heard of a karaoke bar, probably instantly thought of Bill Murray's famous lounge singer character on Saturday Night Live, who was kind of the epitome of the oblivious, cheesy singer. So a lot of the sort of small bar owners around America in cities like New York and Los Angeles and Orlando, they really had problems getting people to sing.
If you don't leave me alone, I shall strike you.
This is from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution in 1993. They are braying like mules in Marietta, taking songs like My Way and Mac the Knife in directions Old Blue Eyes never intended. Why would self-respecting human beings willfully humiliate themselves like this in public, especially in front of people who may or may not be their friends? Have they no pride? So originally, karaoke was always portrayed very negatively in movies in the 80s and early 90s. If you look at something like When Harry Met Sally, where Billy Crystal is singing on a karaoke machine to Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal's ex-wife walks in, the whole point of the scene is that he should be ashamed for having been caught singing, and specifically been caught with a karaoke machine. Or in My Best Friend's Wedding, where Julia Roberts and Cameron Diaz go to a karaoke bar together, and because Julia Roberts wants to embarrass Cameron Diaz, she does all she can to get her on stage and embarrass her. So often it's used as a very quick comedic sort of punching bag to indicate that this is this very lame activity, who would want to be caught doing this, and it's something that no one with any musical talent or taste would ever want to be a part of. I met Mike at Penn State in the mid-90s, and I mean, one of the first things that sort of jumped out at me was that he was very good at getting people to do things that maybe they didn't want to do. He would always try to find these karaoke bars at Penn State, and I'd always be like, no way, can't do it. Like, I don't want to get in front of people.
Yeah, I can recall the first time that I got Brian Raftery to come out to karaoke.
It was not a fun place to go, and that's why it was basically empty that night.
I remember Brian being really, really nervous. He was a big music lover, and we both talked about music all the time, and I kind of felt like he would like it. I always saw in him the potential to be a fantastic karaoke singer.
And after a couple of pictures, I actually got up and sang. I didn't do it by myself. I did it with my friends there because I was still kind of awkward and shy, and but it felt great.
He was really satisfied afterwards. I guess I can only compare it to my friends who run the New York City Marathon. Although there was no marathon, and it was just 3 minutes of singing in a real hellhole.
We both moved to New York in the late 90s. He moved there a little while before I did, but he had found this place called Village Karaoke, which was a private room karaoke bar on Bowery between 5th and 6th.
Me and Brian did a karaoke public access show on the Manhattan Neighborhood Network. The show was called Karaoke Adventure, and it's important to note that there was an exclamation point after each word, kind of like karaoke adventure.
We were going to film the first episode, and when that week before, we had walked into this toy store for some reason. They had these very cheap, ridiculous-looking animal puppets. So we just said, why don't we just do this show, we get everyone drunk, get them to sing, and start handing out puppets.
Watching it nowadays is a strange experience.
I don't think I even watched it more than once.
Truth be told, Village Karaoke was on a long, protracted decline.
I think the combination of having so many people there now, it became very popular and not a huge staff to deal with it.
It had probably been about a year and a half since I had last gone there because it was getting absolutely disgusting.
And I think a couple things changed the course of how people saw karaoke. Think about the music of the late 90s. There was this teen pop boom. And it was the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera. It sort of felt like there was this sort of youth revolt with music. As a result, people started selling at-home karaoke machines. It became very popular. Strangely, even though Bill Murray's Nick the Lounge Singer character on Saturday Night Live had been one of the contributing factors to people thinking of karaoke as this cheesy lounge singer activity, it was Bill Murray again who kind of redeemed karaoke in the popular culture. In 2003, he starred in Lost in Translation, and they wind up going to a Japanese karaoke room with a bunch of Japanese friends. And even though they're singing to the whole room, they're mostly, throughout the course of the evening, flirting with each other through song. I mean, it's very clear that there's some sort of connection happening in this room between them. I started noticing a lot of other TV shows and movies using karaoke as part of their plot lines. It's a big part of High School Musical. I mean, the whole reason those two kids meet before they're even in a musical is doing karaoke. The success of American Idol and the success of karaoke in the last few years are both interconnected. You really can't separate one from the other. When the American Idol premiered in 2002, I noticed a couple of things. One is that everyone on the show looked kind of normal. They were all amateurs. And I think a lot of them probably got their start doing karaoke at home. I think they probably was their introduction to singing. At the same time, American Idol's commercial success sort of cemented karaoke's popularity in America, because what you're looking at here is the idea that anyone really can sing. So I think they've both benefited each other a whole lot. But I really did get something out of karaoke. I mean, I really think that it built up a confidence in me that I use later on in my life and helped me sort of finally shed all the weight I'd had since I was in high school. It finally helped me shed a lot of the awkwardness I'd had all through my life. And again, it's a very strange thing to credit with your own self-development, but it is what it is. I mean, that was the one thing that kind of got me out of my shell. I would love to be able to jump in a cab and go back to Village Karaoke, but I can't, and maybe that's for the best. I mean, you can't really sort of relive the past, but I definitely miss sometimes standing on that table and singing Night Ranger songs, just because, that was a great part of my early 20s and a great part of my life in New York.